Welcome to a Healing Peace podcast. My name is Kimir Baker. I am an overcomer, writer, speaker, and God enthusiast. I am fueled by helping women achieve their emotional healing so that they can live the abundant life God has for them. In this podcast series, we provide faith-based inspiration to mend from emotional hurt, along with tools and tips for emotional wellness. In your journey, as you apply these tools and tips, you will begin to live the transformed life that you always desired. In fact, you will possess a new you. Hello, family. Last week's episode, we began the conversation about being secure in our self-worth. We discussed how others may not see our worth. However, when we spend time with Jesus, we can develop our confidence and worth through his power. We are continuing the conversation by pulling from our archives. We will discuss how we can walk in our worth or be rooted in our self-worth. Well, today I have a friend with me. Her name is Deanne, and she's a life coach, and she's going to help us to find some practical methods for achieving this. So, Deanne, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Kamir. I'm so happy and honored to be here with you and with these ladies listening.
All right, that's great. And I know you well. Ladies, she's a very good friend of mine, so I'm excited to have her insight and wisdom with us today. But Deanne, can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
You want my whole life story, or you want just a 2-minute blurb?
Well, I will want the 2-minute blurb.
Okay, yeah. Myself, right now, I have been married for 31 years to a fantastic, supportive husband who's full of energy, and as we've gotten older, I finally can keep up with him just a little bit because his energy's slowing down. I have a 30-year-old son, and he has a 5-year-old daughter, so I have a 5-year-old granddaughter and a 28-year-old son with a wife and a 1.5-year-old little boy and another one on the way, and I have a 19-year-old precious daughter at Hardin-Simmons University. So that is my main thing. My family, which I love. But I homeschooled all these kids, and as my homeschool career started coming to an end, that's when I started thinking, what do I want to be when I grow up?
And you landed on being a life coach?
Yeah, I landed on life coaching. I felt like the Lord just kept opening and shutting doors, almost kind of like I was going through a maze. And it ended up in life coaching. I have a degree in psychology, and so I considered I want to go back and get a master's and go into counseling. But when I discovered life coaching, it just fit so much with who I am, because it's not just talking, but for me, it's about transformation. It's about moving forward. It's about where you're stuck, being able to move out of being stuck, but finding your own resources inside you, not because someone's telling you what to do and then you just do what they have to say. So for me, it's about inner transformation, and I get to see people's lives pretty radically change.
Well, as you say that, the one thing that came to my mind is about being stuck, and I get stuck a lot. And so as you were saying that, I was like, oh, no wonder we're such good friends.
I get the stuck language, yes.
Yeah, because I'm like, I'm so trapped in the same circle over and over and over and over. So I'm excited that we get to kind of talk about that a little bit today. And for our listeners, with you being a life coach for a while, what is a rewarding experience that you've had as a life coach?
Oh, I get to have rewarding experiences all the time, because when I'm working with someone and I can feel and I can see them going from stuck to the whole world opening in front of them. All of a sudden, options are available, and the heaviness and the resistance and the feelings is like there's chains around your ankles just holding you down. I mean, I can see those open and unlock, and people walk out of that, and those are powerful, powerful, my like addictive moments.
Yeah, I definitely get that as well, because when you see transformation, it's kind of like amazing, especially from a human perspective, that we can actually go through that journey and at the end be liberated and something new and exciting.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with you not too long ago after a Toastmasters meeting, and you were stuck. I don't remember the what the situation was, but you were stuck, and I was just curious about it, and I just asked you a few questions, and right, maybe the second or third question, just this, well, revelation of the Holy Spirit lit you up, and your face went, oh,
Yeah.
that's what it is, and it was a 180-degree switch,
Yeah.
just in an instant.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that time. But we've had many of those times.
It's fun. It's so fun.
You're very great at being poignant with your questions to bring in insight. So I guess with that being the case, let me start asking you some questions.
I'll try not to ask them back. Okay.
Oh, that's true. That'll be quite disciplined, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's what I was talking about before, ladies, in the introduction. We're talking about walking worthily as a criteria, right? And we think about it, and as I said before, it's kind of difficult, and it goes against our society. But before we go into a little bit practical methods of walking worthily, I want us to take a moment to discuss our creation and doing good work. Because that was part of that walking worthy as well. It's like we're presenting our creation to others. So I wanted to ask Deanne, which she's excited because she's great with questions and answers and all that good stuff. And I wanted to know from you, Deanne, like what are some pitfalls that we experience when we're unaware of our creation or our identity?
The performance perfection trap.
That's a common theme.
Yeah, that's for sure one. That's one that a lot of people, I run into it. I'm probably everybody at some point, but the feeling that you have to be perfect, or the feeling that you have to be someone other than who you are to meet up to others' expectations, to meet up to, depending on how you see God, God's demands on you, or God's requirements, or God's expectations of you. So, being unaware of our true identity, how God sees us. That's one of the first ones that comes to my mind, is the performance and perfection pitfall.
And you said it a little bit, but I kind of want to flesh that out some more in terms of, it does have a residence in everything that we do. Can you give us an example of what that will look like in our everyday life?
Well, performance or perfection, either one's kind of show up. Well, first it's going to show up in your thoughts that you may not be aware of. And then these thoughts are going to create feelings, and then that's where you're going to start acting from. So when I'm dealing with some perfection issues, and I know this because I've done the work behind it, but my thoughts tend to be, no one's going to like this. This isn't going to be good enough. I'm just wasting my time. This is going to be hard. Thoughts along those lines. And so my desire, my motivation to do it is, pressed down. And then I procrastinate. So some people hit performance or perfection by actually being quite successful. Some people feel maybe the emptiness or the pressure, and they respond by stepping up and, like swinging the bat and hitting home runs. And that's got its own set of danger. If you're performing, if you're aiming for perfection and you can come close to it, then your tendency is going to be to rely on yourself. And when you rely on yourself, you know inwardly that you can't always pull it off. So there's the nagging, like a dog biting at your ankles. If I slow down just a little bit, I'm going to get bitten. So that's kind of the two sides of some ways that performance and perfection shows up, is in actually being able to perform and pull things off, which brings the trap of, if you slow down, it feels like your whole very life is at stake. Like if you can't hit that home run time after time after time, then who you are isn't good enough. Or the other side, which is where I tend to go, the procrastination side, is I know I can't do it good enough, and so I'm not even going to try. But the result is the same, that it's depending on myself. It's the feeling of having to meet up to expectations that can't possibly be met every time.
And so, as you say this, one of the things that I'm thinking about is that first is kind of like an inward turmoil, so to speak. But how does that inner and what we're trying to accomplish, how does that affect our relationships and our interactions with other people?
Ah, what a great question. It impacts all of them, because when we're in this inner turmoil, when we've learned these patterns of survival or patterns of moving through the world the way we present ourselves to the world, I think that was your language, then we have to maintain that. And a lot of times, the way that we've decided to show up in the world is not a conscious decision, but it starts way back when we're little. Even sometimes before language, in our families when we're growing up. And if you take, for example, a mom who had no education and feels that education is so very important for their child, and is just, from the time that child's little, is pushing or driving or pulling this child to education excellence. And that may line up with the temperament of the child, but what if the child is a creative type, and that book learning and memorization isn't really where they excel? They really excel in expression through artistic forms. Well, now they want their mom to be happy. And so to line up and make her happy, they try to fit into that shape until it's practiced for so long that then they show up in the world and it's not really who they are, an academic or a memorization person or whatever path that takes in their life. And really who they are doesn't find much expression. So I call it's a false identity. And we don't know that it's false until we have the sweet benefit of the reflection of how God sees us, and in close community and connection with others to feed back who they see, where we can practice new expressions and get that feedback, in a safe, connected community.
And as you say that, because I was thinking, okay, we've identified that this occurs and it has long lasting effects. And as you were speaking, you began to kind of unravel how we began to gain the awareness and true identity. And so you're probably going to repeat yourself, but I really want to hone in and let our audience really catch things that we can begin to do to gain this awareness, to not be in that false identity, to have that true identity. So can you kind of walk us through like some of the things that we can do practically to start that awareness?
You are so perceptive, Kamir. That was an excellent question. And I can give you some of the steps and of the ways that I found. And the trick with this is it's not a formula as in if you do A, B, and C, then you're going to get D.
Huh. Thank you for clarifying that, because I'm an ABCD person. You're like, I'm expecting my results.
Yeah, so you definitely will get results, but unless you're in tune for something outside of a formula, then it can be, it feels a little bit like, can feel a little bit like free falling.
Mm.
So the first thing that I think is crucial is seeing and hearing and receiving how God sees you and how God feels about you. To walk worthily has to be built on the word worthy, right?
Mm.
And if you're walking worthily and trying to meet performance or expectations, then you're not able to walk in your true identity. So when one thing that I've seen in Americans, and particularly American women, is that we don't have an experience that we are worthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just as we are, just as we sit, who we are, that we are worthy, you are worthy, and that you are worthy because the creator of the whole entire universe saw that he wanted to put a bit of his personal characteristics and attributes in one special creation, and then he made you to hold that. So you are worthy because of what he put in you, because of who he is, because of his expression in you of him. That our worthiness rests on the goodness and the amazing awesomeness of God and Jesus and what he did for us, right? The way that his blood cleanses us. So anything that was outside of that blood is gone. And shockingly, when God looks at you now, he doesn't look at you and think, oh man, Kamir's pretty good, but she's got these areas over here, or Susie, man, she's come a long way. As soon as she comes a little further, she's just going to hit that worthy spot. Mm-hmm. He looks at us and he is absolutely 100% delighted with you, exactly where you are, exactly who you are, his creation. Mm-hmm. His heart just leaps with joy over you, and that's where the worthy starts. I forgot the question because that was so exciting to me.
It was, and actually, as you're sharing that, like, there's a couple of things that came to my mind. I've shared numerous similar things throughout the podcast series, so it's exciting to see that in this conversation that these are attributes, or this understanding is continual. Mm-hmm. You continually have to work through understanding who you are in Christ and that you're worthy with him. And I know even in my own journey that I'm always being brought back to this place because I am a perfectionist and because there's things that I want to achieve. And so I just run off. And then when things don't work out, like, I get so discouraged, but it's because I'm having my worthiness in those things. And so I'm excited for what you shared. And I was like, oh, she's preaching today. Because it brings us back to that simple place again of being in him, and that he's given us all that we need to be the best that we're supposed to be. So I think that's a great understanding for how we gain our awareness. Like, our awareness comes from knowing who we are in him, and that he has great things in store, and that we're precious to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited. So I was like, "Ooh, that's so exciting!"
And,
But
and if I can substitute some of your words, you said we have to work through. That was your phrase, and I didn't catch the end of this. I mean, I couldn't write it down, so I don't remember. But do you remember saying you have to work through?
work through the tension of not seeing ourselves worthy.
Yes, yes. And so what I say is instead of having to work through, which is a struggle, which is striving, which is then puts it back on us anyway,
Good
is
point.
we receive, is to practice receiving,
Hmm. Yeah.
practice, practice believing. And then you did remind me of what the question was.
Okay.
So one of the things that I think that's key in helping to increase awareness of your inner thoughts, your inner language, your inner meaning, that's what I call it,
Mm-hmm.
that inner critical voice, is to re- remove judgment, to remove the judgment of yourself. Oh, I'm late. Dang it. I shouldn't have been late. I'm bad, or,
Right.
oh, I snapped at my kid today. There's definitely loving and unloving behaviors. I'm not saying go all out on being unloving, but what I'm saying is when we can remove the judgment and the criticism of ourselves, then we can have a conversation with God. We can have a conversation within ourselves, and we can hear something different. What is really going on here? Why am I so easily pushed to yell, or why am I so easily pushed to be late? What is happening inside of me that I don't know of? And God, who do you want to be for me in this, to
Hmm.
show yourself and to show me more of myself? Because he loves to make us like him. That's his primary purpose, is to
Right.
be like him. So that thing of removing judgment and criticism of yourself, I really believe opens a door to be able to walk through where you couldn't have walked through before.
Hmm. I definitely appreciate that feedback, and even more so the correction of terminology, because I'm very literal, and I think words do mean a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and in those words and how we use them, it definitely keep us trapped and moving forward. And so I like the receiving
Receive.
versus
Mm-hmm.
um, you know the wrestling piece. And as I'm looking at the time, I'm like, oh, we're running out of time for this episode. And so I'm gonna ask, because I still have some questions and we're just getting started. Will you come back so we can finish our interview?
Oh, I'd love to.
Okay, great. Thank you again, Deanne, for joining us. Thank you guys for listening, and I will see you back next week.